plan to go wherever I can, to say whatever I can, to tell the world of the things that must be done.
Never.
To bring pressures to bear on some government in order to
never
save
again
as possible
shall it be
that country.
that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
Interviewed by the legend, like yourself.
He's actually not a bad soccer player either.
I think one day, if I live long enough, you might be the president of the country.
It's Dispatch Live's business podcast.
My name is Ted Keenan. Stay tuned for more. Dispatch Live is talking to Siyabulela Makhunga, who represents the Automotive Aftermarket Guideline meeting that has happened throughout the Eastern Cape. Siyabulela, what are you chaps hoping to achieve with this big symposium that you've got going, where you're actually visiting suppliers?
Well, in the main, we are hoping to achieve what we call a nationwide and spread of information, particularly targeting the consumers, the people who are the most suffering stakeholder, especially that they don't have sufficient information on how to deal with automotive aftermarket guidelines. As you are aware that these are guidelines that seeks to protect our consumers, but also they seek to, empower car dealers and car dealerships that are approved in insurance with information in terms of how they can adhere to the guidelines that the Competition Commission has published in 2021, in the main, to make sure that both original equipment manufacturers, that are OEMs, as well as insurers, they are able to create a space where small players in the automotive sector can play a meaningful role in terms of participation in this industry.
Okay, so if I try to simplify this for our listeners, if a person has bought a brand new motor car and it's state of the art, after 2 years, maybe the warranty is over, and he now wants to get it fixed, but the car's in brilliant condition, he would want to take it to the top suppliers. Can he effectively do that?
Well, what the guidelines seeks to ensure, they want to give a consumer choice, because where there is choice, there is going to be quality of the service and products, but also there's going to be an economically reasonable price, because there's competition. Because what the Competition Commission seeks to achieve is to level the playing field, ensure that there is competition in terms of quality and price. So in this case, the guidelines seeks to say to the consumer, be more than comfortable to take your vehicle to a not so top of the range supplier or a workshop or panel beating owner. You are more than welcome to take your car to a registered panel beater. Hence, it is important that we mention this, that all suppliers must be registered and comply with all the necessary regulations in terms of the space they're operating. They must be registered with insurers. They must be part of panel of service providers that are accredited. By accreditation, we mean that they must have ticked all the boxes in terms of compliance, because we don't want consumers to go and take their cars to fly by night, a guy standing next to a street without the proper workshop, without proper certification. Because what if you are not happy with the service? Where are you going to take that provider to? But what is important is that we're encouraging small players to come into the space, make sure that they are certified, they tick all the boxes in terms of compliance, but key to it is that they must give our consumers sufficient space for them to make a choice as to whom to take their cars.
The average age of South African vehicles is getting older and older and older. So there are people with motor cars who probably don't even want to have any registered fixer. They are prepared to take the risk on this. At what stage do you lift that bar so that you guys can get involved in the quality of service? You presumably are not going to work with somebody who's just set up a little welding works on the side of the road. What boxes do they have to tick so that your organization is happy?
Well, we've always worked with associations of panel beaters and workshop owners.
Yeah.
And this makes our work easier as a competition, that we deal with regulation and the associations deal with issues of compliance and empowerment. We know that we're not the only player that is going to make it possible for small players to participate, but at least we create a conducive environment for them to participate so that we encourage a greater spread of participation by smallholder panel beaters as well as workshop owners. But now associations then come in and provide not only technical support to their members, but also they assist them with empowerment. They should know that they must have a SAR certificate. They must have occupational health and health safety issues being addressed, at least at a level of a workshop, of an owner's workshop, that they don't raise these issues for other regulators to have problems with them operating. But our space is to focus on regulation in terms of competition, and for them to make sure that they do benefit from this automotive aftermarket sector, which is predominantly now being dominated by your bigger players.
Yeah. So, if I'm understanding this correctly, anybody can be registered as long as they tick all the boxes. So there's a high protection of the car, vehicle owner or whatever. At what stage do the insurance companies get involved in this?
The insurance companies, after the Commission effectively implemented the guidelines on the 1st of July 2021, all insurance companies are, in terms of these guidelines, compelled to register on their panel of service providers all these emerging panel beaters, the independent service providers, as well as workshop owners on their panels. So if one were to make an example, there are insurance companies, for instance, who have a category of vehicles and old age vehicles. They've got special packages for that. We don't expect them to disregard small workshops and panel beating in terms of servicing those vehicles, because these are vehicles that are now at a low cost in terms of maintenance, repair, and panel beating.
What has the reaction been from your roadshow so far? The area that I'd like you to please focus on is, has there been negative perceptions, or are most of the suppliers, let's talk panel beaters, are most of them happy with the journey that you chaps have undertaken?
Well, I must say the panel beaters, who obviously are the ones who are greatly to benefit from the guidelines, because it really creates space for the emerging panel beating company to participate in the mainstream of the automotive sector. So they've received this quite well. Yesterday we were in West Bank in East London, and I think the response that we received there was quite encouraging. Today we're going to King William's Town, and we're hoping for an equally positive response, because what we have picked up, especially from our last engagements with some of the players in the Eastern Cape, is that they don't have access to this information. And for us to improve access, we need to make sure that they are empowered with information, they know where to go, what is it that is expected of them as the key players in the industry. So ours is to make sure that there is a nationwide spread of access to information when it comes to the automotive aftermarket guidelines.
And has the uptake on this been satisfactory as far as you chaps are concerned? Are people keen to get involved? The suppliers, I mean.
Well, largely the uptake has really been quite positive, but obviously they did caution that it's going to take time, especially that some of the new players have got to address issues of compliance, issues of making sure that they are registered in all the panel of service providers. They are also registered with insurers, but in principle, they have been very supportive to say this is what South Africa has been looking for a very, very long time. Now, because the guidelines give specifications and specifics in terms of who does what is expected from who, and what is it that we must do should there be one of the key role players not complying with the guidelines that in essence are actually binding to all the role players in the automotive aftermarket sector.
The role of people that are deep in the rural areas where there's no connectivity, it's tough for them to get registered. Does your organization assist them to get registered, or do they have to work through their specific trades?
Unfortunately, the Commission is not involved in getting small players to comply in terms of the requisite standards of operation. It is for this reason why we are constantly working with associations of panel beaters and smallholder workshops to make sure that we don't replace them in terms of the role that they play, which is that of empowering their members, but also providing technical and other support to their members.
So there's no way that the Commission is trying to force, say, a small mechanic who's deep in the bush. The Commission is not trying to stop him fixing up a beat-up tractor. He can fix a beat-up tractor, but there's not going to be any guarantees. Would that be an accurate assessment of what you're trying to achieve?
Most certainly, we live in a constitutional democracy where voluntarily those who are interested in a particular trade, they take it upon themselves to get more information. Hence, we're saying that part of the work that we do is to provide sufficient information. We were working with community media in making sure that we reach out to as many people as possible, because this does not only affect the panel beating companies or workshops. This also talks to the consumer, because there are lots of elements that are involved in the guidelines. So we want to make sure that we are accessible, but key to it is that those who are in this trade need to take it upon themselves to get sufficient information to know where to find an association under their area of trade, so as to make sure that they are empowered with whatever necessities that are necessary to make sure that they are accredited.
Just a final question, and thank you very much for coming into Daily Dispatch. A final question. If a company becomes registered, and that company was in the past not registered, can the, say, insurance company force a motorist to go to that organization, or is the choice of where he wants to go to still with the car or vehicle owner?
The choice of where you want to go is with the vehicle owner, if one is to do things according to the guidelines. But what insurers have got to ensure that they provide information. So we're calling for transparency. We're calling for them to ensure that you are given a list of panel members or those who participate in a particular panel of trade, for you to make a choice as to where you want to take your car for repairs, for maintenance, and so forth and so forth.
Thank you very much for coming into Dispatch. So we are likely to see not the bush mechanics, but certainly the companies that do a great job and have all the equipment and have all the right skills getting onto the reference book.
Thank you very much for having us. It's always a pleasure, but obviously ours is about ensuring that we bring about equality in terms of opportunities, access to information to our consumers, transparency in terms of us engaging the role players like insurers, original equipment manufacturers, as well as the panel beaters. But key to this, the rest really lies with the people that are involved in this trade to get up and really follow through all the work that is being done, not only by the Competition Commission, but also by government, and see where the opportunities are so that they become part of players that benefit in the mainstream of the sector.
Thank you for coming into Dispatch Live. Siyabulela Makhunga.
Thank you, Brother.